Today I talk about fear of success. Welcome to I think this is episode 39 of the Luebbers journey. So when I first got to Austin, my business that was back in January. My business was very much on the upswing. I was on one of the most massive upswings that I've been on. I had a bunch of new awesome clients. I was doing really well. And I felt this feeling of, this feels too good. It feels just like a glass, like a house of cards, or like a glass vase just sitting on an edge. Like, it feels too perfect. It feels like, I just don't want to touch anything. I don't want anything to go wrong. And it was really, really interesting. And it wasn't harmful in this scenario, but I am going to talk about some instances in which it has been harmful to me. This fear of, when things are going well, failing or letting your armor crack or something. And I broadly label this as fear of success, and they're actually different kinds, but certainly fear of success is something that I've faced at numerous points. The reason I'm making this video about it today is because I'm actually feeling it a little bit right now. And it's sort of a weird thing to admit to yourself, that you're afraid of success, especially when you work so hard, when you literally have dedicated your life at this point to achieving certain goals and improving. It's really weird to admit to yourself that you're afraid of succeeding. And it's also weird to think about why that would be. Why would you be afraid of failing? So I'll get to that in a second, because I think it's a really interesting discussion. But first I'll share with you why I'm afraid of success, and then try to psychoanalyze myself at least a little bit to give you some insight into how this works and hopefully relate with you. So at the moment, I have a few clients who have done very, very well, and I also have a lot of leads, a lot of potential clients knocking on the door, more than I've had in a good while. And I've sort of been putting them off and being like, yeah, like we'll talk next week, or not devoting too much mental bandwidth to them. Even when I know a lot of them will turn into clients. And I made this insight today that I'm pretty comfortable. And in fact, I could coast along. I don't need any more clients. I don't need, a massive cash influx right now or anything like that. And if I do take on more clients, and I will when I take on more clients, it'll force me to build better systems. It'll force me to tackle new problems. It'll force me out of my comfort zone. And that's really, I think, what makes it scary. Now, what makes it even more difficult is that, and I think I can say this broadly about fear of success, is that it forces you to recreate your identity. Whenever you do something that you haven't done before, something that you're not used to, like taking on a new client or expanding your business or behaving in a manner that you're not accustomed to, it kind of doesn't feel like you the first time you do it. Often the first bunch of times you do it, it doesn't really feel like you. And it feels really weird, and that alone can be really uncomfortable. And I often find, related to this, that it's easier to sort of redefine my identity before I go out and do these things, to try to consciously picture myself doing them, using visualization and things like that, to cement a new identity before I go through all these things and feel like it's just not me. It makes the transition a lot easier. And so that's my sort of number one tactical tip. If you find yourself afraid of success, what works for me is trying to redefine my identity ahead of time. And so the reason I mentioned before that this had been harmful to me at certain points, and the one that I'll bring up, is When I was on the soccer team in college, at the very beginning, when I first joined the team during preseason and into the beginning of the season, I was doing well. I was playing very well. I was starting games for the varsity team. And I sort of felt this way. I felt like this feels too good. It feels like I almost don't deserve it. It feels like I'm not, it feels like it could crack or crumble. It doesn't feel secure. And it did. I let this mindset overcome me to the point where I said, I don't deserve this. And my playing dipped with it, and this whole subtle psychological downspin happened that only later, now that I've dug into my psychology enough to realize that not only is this something that happens with humans, it's actually been a pattern for me at different points in my life. Only now do I recognize that that's what was happening. And if I had noticed it and realized that this is natural and there are ways around it, for example, recreating your identity. And only now do I realize that it was fear of success. I was afraid of having to redefine my identity. And this has happened at numerous points, often enough that I now know that it's something that occurs to me, and I know how to plan for it, and I try to recreate my identity ahead of time. And still, there's always, whenever you do something like this, it's always a little bit like stepping into a cold shower or jumping into a cold pool. No matter how much you prepare before, how much you visualize, meditate, practice, the first time you do it, it's going to be like jumping into a cold pool. There's going to be some shock, there's going to be some adjustment, but if you just stay in the pool and don't scramble out, you'll warm up. You'll get used to it. And that's what I remind myself of. So I would love to hear if you have any experiences of realizing that you're afraid of success, or maybe even this video helped you realize that's what was happening at certain points in your life. I would love to hear about them. I think this is something that's really subtle. A lot of people don't realize that they're actually afraid of succeeding, and especially don't want to admit it to themselves. I certainly didn't for a while because it felt so antithetical to what I did, but it is a natural human response, which is why I wanted to make this video and why I feel strongly about it. We'll talk tomorrow.